Hey, good morning, Northbound. Today's podcast episode is titled The Miles That No One Sees. I love to backpack. I've put tons of miles out on the trail. I've been by myself for long periods of time. And so that resonates with me, and it resonates with maybe this channel and the theme of Northbound. But this podcast, The Miles That No One Sees, is leadership and what leadership looks like. And we're going to get this episode and some of the following episodes. This is going to be kind of a common theme that we're going to start focusing on for the next maybe few days or so, is this idea of just raw leadership. What does leadership, real leadership look like? And it's raw and it's gritty and it's hard and it's in some cases depressing. See, leadership is not always fun. And I've learned the hard way, or I've learned that the hard way so many times. And so, we can pontificate about whether leadership is learned or taught or you're born with it, whatever. At the end of the day, I don't really know, but I know that it's hard. And it's even more difficult when you're doing it the right way. And that's all sometimes a hard topic to discuss, because when you're doing it the right way, it is going to be difficult. Let's get into that. Let's break this down into emotional, physical, and mental, spiritual impacts and talk about these silent, quiet miles that no one sees. The stuff that leaders carry in silence and that terrain that wears you down. Abraham Lincoln was a leader who dealt with some very, very hard issues and challenges, and it wore him down. In fact, he used to get very depressed. He called it hypo. That's what he would call it when he was feeling really, really down. And that was his term for hypochondria. And Abraham Lincoln, what he did is he placed people in his support system. That was one of his rules. I need people in my support system to help me. That is so key for any leader, is that you have people that are there to help you. And if you follow Jesus Christ, he's someone who can help you. In fact, he's the number one person that can help you. And we are also called to be in each other's lives, to back each other up, to encourage each other. That's why I started the Northbound Approach community. So come join it if you want to. I'd love to have you. But that community is for that very specific reason, to encourage each other, to build each other up. That's what Lincoln needed, and that is what you need. As a leader, you need others to help you. These are the hard things that no one sees in leadership. One is emotional wear and tear. It is emotionally wears on you because you're carrying other people's worries when sometimes you don't even have time to worry about your own. You have decision fatigue. Leaders are constantly having to make decisions. And that can be really tiring after a while. And then there's the loneliness of just responsibility. You're responsible all the time. And then what about conflict? It's so emotionally taxing to be responsible for absorbing conflict. And conflict takes place constantly in any organization. Sometimes it's really subtle. Sometimes organizations are working really well and they've gotten rid of most of the conflict. But there's always going to be some in any organization. We are people and we will have conflict with each other. How do we manage that? And it's tough for the leader. It's very, very tiring. Leaders also have to kind of mask their emotions. Leaders don't just roll into work and just, wear their emotions on their sleeve. Some do, and that can be good and bad. Sometimes it's good to see emotions from a leader or from your boss. But most of the time, we're hiding that, and that is tiring. And a lot of times, leaders feel misunderstood or judged because other people don't see the cost of the decisions that they were making. How often I mean, I can think of so many cases where I made a decision. It wasn't necessarily what I would have wanted to make, but I had to make that decision because, you know, my superiors told me this is what we're going to do. And it wasn't an illegal command. It was just the way that they wanted to do it. I wouldn't have wanted to do it that way. And the folks that I was leading, they didn't want to do it that way. But I had to decide, hey, this is the way we're going to do it because my superiors told me to. And I would make that decision and then feel, kind of just I'm bearing the brunt of the dissatisfaction or annoyance with that decision. That is hard. And what does it feel like? Well, Google will tell you that you can feel tightening in your chest or feeling on edge or some weight, like there's just weight on you. And folks, I have been there. And I'm telling you that this unseen emotion, this emotional weight has a physical cost. And that's number 2 is physical. And that is the wear and tear on your body. True leadership will bring wear and tear on your body. Chronic fatigue, back tension, heart rate up. I mean, there were so many times in my career in my previous military career where I was thinking about problems all night. That's not good. And then this also leads to poor eating habits. And what does it feel like? Well, let me tell you a story. This is where it starts to get raw because I go to work. I roll in that morning. I'm walking into my office and it had been an extremely stressful week. In fact, it had been a stressful month, but there was one in particular very stressful week. And in the next episode that we talk about this, it's going to be titled The Weight You Carry. And in that episode, I'm going to share with you why I was so stressed and why I was in a very bad place. But first, I'm going to tell you what happened when I walked in. I walked into my office, and as I came up to my desk, I could not move. That's never happened to me in my life. It never happened to me before then, and it hasn't happened since. But I could not move. And the pain was intense. It was intense chest pain, but I couldn't move. I was paralyzed. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's what happened. And I tried to move, but it was too painful. The pain was so much that I couldn't move. So I just stood there. I had come in early that day, and so nobody else was there. It was just me, alone in my office, staring at my desk. And I looked, and there was the phone. So I figured, okay, well, I've got to call Mandy. I've got to let my wife know that I can't move, but I can't get to that phone. So I just stood there in pain. Finally, I finally was able to kind of move a little bit. The pain was high, but I was able to move eventually, and I got to the phone and I picked it up. I could not sit down. I could not even just like turning one way. So I kind of just went for this straight line towards the phone. I'm standing upright. I pick up the phone. I'm able to dial. I call her. I said, this is what's going on. Well, she's really worried. And she says, well, I'm going to come right now and I'm going to pick you up. I said, no, don't, please. I'm just going to wait a few minutes. I might be okay. Well, what I did next, she was not a fan of, and that is that I finally got enough, I just was able to move enough to where I hobbled downstairs. I got in my truck and I went straight to the ER, but I didn't tell her I was going. And so when I get there, they hooked me up to everything you can think of, EKG, all that stuff, because they think I'm having a heart attack. And I'm not sure. I mean, maybe I am. At that point, I don't know. This is the worst thing I've ever felt. I did not have a heart attack, by the way. I called Mandy. She was very upset that I went to the ER without telling her, and that is fair. And there was nothing wrong with me. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what that's all about. The doctor at the time, he said, well, I think you have so much stress that your body shut down. Folks, I've never had that before. That was the craziest thing ever. And the pain was intense. And we're going to go into just the raw and gritty details in the next episode about what led me to that point. This is just to kind of set the stage, if you will, for this series. And this is because these are the points, these are the moments that nobody sees for leaders. They don't see all that stress and all that emotion. The third thing, we were talking about the hard things that no one sees. And number one was emotional wear and tear. Two was the physical cost on your body. Three is the mental and cognitive load. So that's the running scenarios in your mind 24/7, always thinking 3 steps ahead, even when you have a day off. Working in the gray. That's another one that comes to my mind, is just the working in the middle, like trying to balance things. Sometimes making the decisions is very, very difficult because of incomplete information. Tracking everything. That was something we're going to talk about that in future episodes, just how much tracking goes on when you're trying to keep track, take care of people. And so that can just take up a lot of your time and is mental strain. Okay. And then there's the spiritual impact, identity impact. And this is where for me, my faith and in Jesus Christ really comes into play, because spiritual and identity impact is so, so important. You've got to lay your burdens at the feet of Christ. And you also have to love people and treat people with the utmost respect and love that he wants you to. And sometimes that's really hard too, because now, like, that's even more weight, right? We're going to talk about that in future episodes. But if you're praying for yourself, pray for your people too. And when you're praying for them, pray that you would have the strength to take care of them the way that Jesus wants you to. Another thing is that leaders can face is battling discouragement all alone. And so that is where you need people. For all of this stuff, we need people to help us. Each one of us needs that. We need people to encourage us and empower us, to give us feedback, and also to just boost us, be alongside of us as we lead. And so that's what I want to do. I want to help you with all of this. So if you're feeling like any of this, I want you to reach out to me at chris@go-northbound.com. Just reach out to me direct, and I want to help you. I want to get together. Another thing that the miles that no one sees are relational miles, relationships with your spouse, with your children, with your family, missing their moments. Maybe for military, there are military members that are deploying all the time. They're missing those family moments. They're carrying the guilt of disappointing someone on a daily basis. They're also trusted with confidential issues that they can't share, secret stuff they can't share. That is tough. And they see things that they can't tell anybody. That's also hard for leaders. And then there's compassion fatigue. That's the last one. And this one is so important to discuss. And that is, when you are leading well, you care so deeply and so long that your emotional reserves are done. And sometimes you're supporting and caring for people who don't always care back. And so there's a heaviness with this. There's a heaviness of helping people over and over again. And then you get tired and you feel guilty about it. You want to help, but you got nothing left. And you even become numb to emotional challenges. All right, folks. I could talk for a lot longer on this one. These are the miles that no one sees. And next, the next episode is the weight you carry. I've got a very, very raw personal story to tell you. So come back and keep listening. And don't forget to go to www.go-northbound.com. Reach out to me, join our community. come alongside of other leaders and those learning to lead and just be with us as we encourage each other, as we learn, and even maybe jump on an adventure with us. There's some stuff coming up next year. I'm going to go into the Grand Canyon. I'm going to hike up to Oregon. Let's see, what else do I have planned? There's things planned, and come along. Let's go. Let's just be together and learn from each other and encourage each other and do some adventures together. All right. See you, Northbound. You just listened to another episode from the Northbound Podcast. Thank you for tuning in today. I hope you were encouraged and empowered in leadership. Go lead boldly and humbly. And remember our vision: elevate your team through Christ-centered leadership. If you want to be a part of our community, just go to go-northbound.com and follow the link and come join us. Follow along with courses and live streams and chats, and maybe even join us for an adventure. We'd love to have you. All of those links are in the description below. Thank you again for tuning in. It's been a pleasure. See ya.